to talk to you about a part of the healing journey that is often omitted in discussion. You've experienced the crumble. That was part one, where we talk about things falling apart and you gaining information from that space. Then you sifted through the crumble and decided what to keep and what to trash during the unlearning phase. And then you've been doing the work. You're building, you're rebuilding yourself, and it makes you so proud to see how you took this negative situation and turned it into something beautiful. You legit took ashes and turned it into beauty. But then it happens. They call you and you slip back up into old habits. They reach out to you and you get into a shouting match with them and you are fighting like you used to back in the day. Someone didn't see your value and they apologize and you're right back where you started, right? Something happens that makes you go right back to square one. And it starts to feel like all the work that you've been doing, all the rebuilding you've been doing is gone to nothing. Because how are you back here if you've been doing the work? That's the question that we ask. But I want you to look at it and realize that that is not the case. This part of the healing journey is called the regression. This is where you feel like you've taken 10 steps forward and then you experience something that makes you feel like you just took 20 steps backwards. But a lapse in judgment or a regression is not a cancellation of all of the work that you have been doing. I think that is a very important part to come to, because a lot of the times prior to me like formalizing my healing journey, when I would get to a place where I would have this inevitable lapse in judgment, I would feel as if I failed. I would feel as if I'm not healed. I would feel as if all the talk I was talking ain't really nothing, because if it was something, I wouldn't be back where I was. But we are human beings. We are human beings. We are humans healing, and we need to give ourselves grace as we go through that journey, right? And the best part about the regression, if I could say there's a best part to feeling this way about yourself, is that even if you feel like you just went back to square one isn't looking the way square one used to look at the beginning of your healing journey. At the beginning of your healing journey, square one was full of mess. It was full of disaster. It was full of a lot of confusion. It was full of so much crumble, potentially, that you didn't even know where to start from. You didn't know where to begin to pick up the mess. But this time you are seemingly going back to square one. But the difference is that you have tools. It's not going to take you as long to get back to the rebuild phase as it did the first time, because you already know what to do. You know what the crumble looks like. You've already healed from a lot of these things. So now you can take all of that information, quickly sift through it, trash what you need to trash, keep what you need to keep, and get back to the rebuild phase. You take that information and you're like, okay, so I thought I had trashed every single part of my interaction with this person, right? I thought I had trashed every single traumatic feeling that I experienced in this situation. I thought it didn't affect me anymore, but clearly it still has some type of hold on me, because if it didn't, I would not be regressing the way I have. So now what do I do with that information? So I just crumbled right now while I was doing my rebuild. But what made me crumble? I had done so much work and figured out everything else. So now you get to a place where you can easily figure out that thing that made you crumble. You can easily see your triggers, because it's not like the first time when there was a bunch of things that made you crumble, a bunch of triggers, a bunch of heartbreak, a bunch of difficulty. You've cleaned up enough of it that now that thing will stick out so glaringly amongst all the work that you've done. So it's just that another little piece that you need to go back and trash and then continue on your rebuild. And since your rebuild foundation is so strong in who you think you are, this is not a foundational shift. It's just a little bit of patchwork, right? So I want you to really give yourself grace on this healing journey. Like, this is a 5-episode series, a 5-show series, but at the same time, this is a lifelong process. It's not something where you heal and you never to think about it again. There will be realistic times where things might come up again, where you feel that pain again, where you start to randomly just mourn again, just unprovoked, and that can make you feel like all the work is a waste. But I'm going to keep saying the work is not a waste. The work is not a waste. My friend, the work is not a waste, because the fact that you've done the work will make it easier to get back to where you were on the building block of re-emerging as this version of yourself that you love, right? And that's the point. If the healing journey took you, let's say 6 months the first time to get to like the rebuild, that place where you felt like you were doing good, where you were feeling yourself, where you were giving yourself grace and really seeing yourself on the other side of it, and you have a relapse or a lapse in judgment or a regression, it might take you a week to go from the crumble of this new information that seemingly pulled you back to get back to where you were before. And that in itself is a win, because what you're doing is equipping yourself with tools to be able to do better next time, not fixing yourself so that you never struggle again. Like, to be human is to go through trauma, to go through difficulties. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us people who experience other people, experience life, and are learning and growing, right? Some of the things you do, you are going to have to fail. And part of that failing is realizing that you're failing forward. I've never been in an experience that has caused me pain, caused me trauma, caused me heartache, caused me disappointment and sadness, that I can say without a shadow of a doubt that there was nothing to gain from it. There was always one little piece, just like I spoke about that table that is like refurbished from the other parts of the house. Where I am today, who I am today, is thanks to all the little experiences, all the negative experiences and the positive ones that I've had throughout my life. And all of those experiences gave me a little piece of something that, if I'm being realistic, that little piece, if I didn't have it, I wouldn't be able to be working at the level, confident at this level, or doing what I'm doing, because those are necessary pieces to my growth. So don't get down on the regression. I know this is where a lot of us get down. This is where I get down, but don't get down on the regression. Give yourself grace and understand that the path is not linear. When you step back from the path, you're going to see that it's angling up. But when you zoom in on one point and you see a little downshift, don't maximize that. Don't magnify that to the point where you pretty much bypass the bigger picture, right? Like, hindsight, step back. If you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm failing now, I don't feel like I'm doing well, all the work I did, it must have been fake, because if it was real, I wouldn't have gone back to this situation I was in. Take a moment, take a seat, calm yourself down, and then step back and say, this might have been a little bit of an L, but how many W's have there been within this? And all of those W's have to hold more weight than this L. You have to get to the place where you convince yourself that all of those W's make it worthy for you to continue to do the work and get past this loss. And last week when I spoke about the rebuild and saying that there's certain things we don't want to let go of, some of those things that we don't want to let go of and we're having a hard time letting go of are what actually lead us to the relapse. And sometimes that relapse just gives us more confirmation as to why we need to like drop the ball and let that thing go. Because maybe during the rebuild, we're like, I don't know if this is the worst thing ever. So maybe I can try and just hold on to it and see how it works and like bring it with me as I move forward. But when you get that relapse, when the situation is so tough that you're like, I never ever want to feel like this again, that might just be that little push you need to say, yeah, you know what? We're going to drop this. This is confirmation as to why this no longer belongs in my space and why I have no business keeping it. So nothing is lost, right? Everything adds on top of itself to get you to the top of the mountain that you're going to. So please provide yourself with grace. Give yourself grace. Give yourself grace. I'm going to keep saying it. The healing journey is not linear. It's not easy, but what I will always say is that it's absolutely worthy. So even in the regression period, the healing journey, and getting to our final part that we will talk about next week, which is the triumph phase, is absolutely, absolutely, absolutely worthy. So thank you so much for listening. Please share this with someone. If you know somebody who is maybe beating themselves up over a mistake that they made again, share this episode with them. Give them that hope, give them that confidence to continue to push forward and understand that in the end, it's all going to make sense. And I'll talk to you next Wednesday. Bye.